Okay, welcome to our first call of the new year 2026. Even though I journal every day and say 2026, and this is the third day I've done it, I have trouble acknowledging that it's 2026. Um, and we'll see what kind of a call we have today. And we were just going to say hello. So, how is your new year so far? We're not formally starting the call, we're kind of sharing. I had a family party today. Um,
Nice.
in my family, my wife got Christmas and I got New Year's. And I feel really good about it because I think, regardless how people hold Christmas, I think a new year is every moment, as I said with my family today, every time I take a breath is a new year and a new moment and a new choice. But every year there seems to be something special about it. And so, how's your new year starting out? Anybody want to share? Did you have a great weekend or?
Um, there's some challenges. I'm, still working through the past year. Trying to reflect on what I'm grateful for. But there's some excitement about what possibilities there are going forward. Um, but it's been a good New Year so far as like I've been I'm still working. I'm not saying that I'm not working through some things, but at the same time, I have an idea where I am, and that's a good place to be. Being aware of what I need to do in order to get to where I want to go, where there's not a lot of confusion.
Cool.
So it's good. I mean, I consider that to be pretty good. I'm excited about some different projects, particularly actually something that uh, I wouldn't mind sharing at some point with a group is just even I was literally having a conversation about this, but and I sent something to you already about it, Steve. Is this idea of how to think? What does it mean to think? And thinking geometrically. Uh,
When
and
did you send that?
I sent it in a text.
Wow. Really?
Yeah,
How
long
long ago?
about 2 weeks.
Holy mackerel. Well, I tell you, I've had a wild and crazy 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I'll actually, I wouldn't mind seeing getting everybody's ideas on that.
Checking my text right now. I have a lot of opinions about thinking, and I'm very interested in any new, and the idea of thinking geometrically, I'm very interested in anything
Well,
like that.
yeah, this is essential to learning. And so I mean this is the I think the question when it comes to
Oh,
safety is that there's this distinction between wisdom
I love this.
and
Um, the title of the PDF file is Learned versus Reasoning.
yes, yeah, that's the distinction that I'm trying to, and I
Yeah,
think
it's
that
really
there's a
cool.
very important distinction to be had there, I'm excited exploring that because I think that there are so many possibilities to build off of that. Because once you start to go into that, how do we learn is the real question. How does the mind work?
Yeah,
And so, and uh, there's, and this is the heart of the AI discussion now. This whole idea of symbolic AI
yeah,
uh, versus this more of a, if you will, say biological, even neurological approach that
right.
is focused on how the actual brain works.
Works. Yeah.
And so I actually I'll put something in the chat that may.
Well, I resonated with your text right off, Joe, because all LLMs can do is they think like a brain.
Mhm.
There's stored stuff in a brain, and the brain interrelates stored stuff. But human beings have more resources than that. We have this idea of vision, and your PDF refers to reasoning. I think that there's something. intrinsic in our nature. There are six energy centers in the body. The first energy center or chakra is DNA, and then the second is epigenetics and nurturing the digestive system. And as they move up, when we hit the sixth chakra, the um, the fifth chakra is the verbal. I create with words, and I don't know if people notice this, but the when I speak, it's not necessarily connected to my conscious brain, you know.
Yeah.
And then I have this ability to see these visions, this energy that I can't experience physically through my body. I can get in touch with, parapsychological phenomena. And I don't think, I think that an AI can put together things and maybe synergize ideas that a human brain didn't think of. But I think that the AI is not going to have that power to,
Right.
um, you know, to come up with something revolutionary. That's out
Well,
of, go ahead.
that's an interesting point. Because it mirrors us and it can come up with more combinations than us.
Exactly.
So then therefore it will come up with something, but it won't
Right.
be outside of organic life. I mean,
And an unwitting human being might think it's actually inspired,
correct.
you know.
That is
Oh,
true.
this is really smart. This is inspired. This guy's really smart. But all it is just regurgitating syntax.
Correct. Exactly. And
Yeah.
so um and then what's really going to be interesting to see is that how it evolves when they integrate different types of sensorial data.
Yeah.
So like pictures and pixels and start to integrate how that you have different, so it's almost like sight that you would actually be integrating into the an AI. So then it's almost like the senses that will be combined. So right now it's only the language that we're seeing, which is pretty
Right.
powerful, obviously. But they can integrate other uh, modalities. Uh,
I just downloaded your PDF file onto my computer and with some, um,
that's still working. I'm still work in progress.
oh, this is all your stuff?
Yeah, it's just
Just a brainstorm?
yeah, it's a brainstorm at this point, but it's not fully thought out.
Okay, well, I'm going to think about it with you and I'm going to engage you over a period of time because this
Yeah, I
is,
would really like to talk to you about this because I
you know,
think that pretty much you were something
well,
that
the
you
whole
said a
group,
really
Fred,
long.
go ahead.
Oh, that's the other PDF.
This is the one you sent me.
Yeah, there's one in the chat.
Oh, you dropped another one in the
Yeah,
chat.
that's all right. Don't even worry about it. This is actually more interesting, and this actually walks through um, the distinction between um, how we read what reasoning would be, what a human does as far as reasoning is concerned. So there's actually like a rational way of thinking, if you will, where there is a um uh, higher level reasons actually govern the the parts, uh meaning that the whole is greater than the parts idea. So that there is this kind of idea of how we can learn and then learn we can change our behaviors, and that the mind is actually governing the body and that we're actually making rational decisions. And then there's another way of kind of looking at it where it's um, pre-normative, where it's basically it's just higher level structures that are taking in information and the higher level it's structural, and it's just a higher level structure that's making the decision. If you want, it's not even a decision.
You
So
just said that the mind is blank the body. Do you remember what you said just about 4 or 5 sentences ago?
The mind is governing.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean that's one way of saying it.
Okay.
And
Well,
then there's the
interestingly, on that point, there's a difference between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system in
yes,
human beings.
absolutely.
And so the sympathetic nervous system is reacting constantly to external sensation. And that's when people get anxious and get excited. And what meditation teaches people to do is to turn off that cognitive, that intensified awareness, causative sensorial experience, and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, where the heart and the organs are telling the brain what to do, rather than the brain telling the heart and the organs what to do. The brain is into flight and fight mode
Fight or
most of the
flight.
time. Yeah. And that's the sympathetic nervous system. And then the parasympathetic nervous system takes over. That's into where the heart is telling the brain what to do. And the heart has 40,000 neurons. You know, the heart actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. The brain is busy sending signals to the fingers and the toes and the mouth. You know,
That's
so I
right.
think it goes right along in this discussion.
Oh, it does. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, and it's all the everything you're talking about there is the signals and how we actually interpret the signals.
right.
And
So if
so,
the
go ahead.
Well, if the mind is governing the body, that's a parasympathetic. If the body is governing the mind, that's sympathetic.
Exactly.
Flight,
Exactly.
fight, you know?
Exactly. So, um, yeah, and just to clarify what it meant to be normative, and actually I should probably highlight this in general. Um, it there is a normative way of kind of where it's just um it's determining what is, the right action. Where is that is, different than saying intelligence, which just generates a set of options. And those are two different things. And that's what kind of,
Oh,
when you get to reasoning
how
versus
does
non-reasoning
normative,
type
what
of
does
intelligence.
normative mean in this context?
I'm sorry.
What does normative mean in this context?
Norms are basically a just a they're a set of kind of standards, if you will. Um, where uh there's like basically you're coming to conclusions uh based off of what you believe to be true.
And in this diagram, you say premise, Socrates is a man, then he is mortal. This says Socrates is mortal. What's the difference there? Where did those two things come from?
Oh, Socrates is a man. This is basically how you, if you were to have it's like if all men are mortal, uh, if Socrates is a man and then he is mortal, then Socrates is a man and Socrates is mortal. So it's reasoning. It's like a
What's the
logic.
difference
It's a
between these two
syllogism.
premises?
The distinction between if Socrates is a man, because one is coming to a conclusion, so it's splitting the idea out. So you see how the two premise then support the conclusion.
Yeah.
So
In other
you
words,
have
two different people could conclude that Socrates is a man, but they might have different reasoning processes behind it. Is that what you're saying?
well, there's a reasoning behind it, meaning um if there's a rule, then you're inferring. So these are how essentially you start to be able to have rules of inference, that if Socrates is a man, then he's mortal. Socrates is mortal is a rule, and then Socrates is a man is something that you can be in that can be inferred.
See, and I would say that that's not a rule. I'd say that's a belief. A rule might
Um,
be something more computative, like I'm here and I can only take one step at a time. That's a fact. That's that's a rule. That's not a belief system. So for me, I would differentiate because I'm thinking Stephen Wolfram and I'm thinking automata and I'm thinking of a Rulliad that basically says one or zero or one and zero. Get what I'm saying?
Right. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah,
sure that I'm
makes
right
sense.
about anything there. I'm just saying that to me, there's a differentiation between a rule and a belief.
Yes, that is true. There is there no there's there a rule is something where it again it's not necessarily thinking about the why the rule exists in the first place and what it actually is.
So
Um,
I'm going to pursue this to, if we want to change topic, let's change topic, but Socrates is mortal. To me, that's a belief system. So I could say, well, Socrates is here. I just stabbed Socrates. He's no longer here. Well, how do I know he's no longer here? Just I can't see him. So does that mean he's no longer here? What if
no.
Anne is sensitive to ESP and says, no, he's standing right here? And like at the end of Star Wars, when Darth Vader, when Luke Skywalker's dad is waving at everybody at the end of Star Wars, his spirit being is still there. So is
Yeah,
Socrates, go ahead.
but I think that there's something that you have to look on the other side of this is
Okay.
that if you have I mean meaning literally that pyramid is where you have to kind of refer to about things in themselves and sensations and then representations. That's essentially you're getting to an idea of like ontology. And then that has a set of categories. And then the set of categories allows you to then have um you're defining what something is, and then you can start to infer from there. I have a really good example of ontology that I could share that makes it
Well,
really simple. But it you what happens is you start to have the categories and then you apply a set of rules that allow you then to infer. Uh, so let's just say I have a category of a human being, right? Then you have a man and a woman. Then you have a child. Then what's the man? What's a woman? If you have a mother, father, like you can start to have a set of rules that allow you to then infer about a particular scenario, I guess is one way of
for
saying
me, the danger of calling those rules instead of prioritized beliefs is that I might at some point believe that there's something absolute about it. And I don't think it's absolute. Here's your word normative.
it. Right.
The space of reason. So like, does this pyramid represent the space of reason? The
That you
space
can
of reason.
start to reason based off of the space of reasons is actually has to do with more of what you're calling wisdom. And meaning I would say understanding. So you can explain it and give reasons as to why something you're calling something. If I were to say a man or a woman, you can give your reasoning as to explaining as to what it
Okay.
is.
And
The
I have
act.
a whole process about how there is no why. We can chase why around for 100 years. Like
Hmm,
this is a game I like to play with people. It's called favorite dessert. Joe, what's your favorite dessert?
tiramisu.
Say what?
Rice pudding, I'll just say.
Rice pudding. What's your least favorite dessert?
Chocolate ice cream.
Good. Chocolate ice cream, rice pudding. Which do you I'm offering you chocolate ice cream and rice pudding. Which do you choose?
Rice pudding.
Okay. Why? Now, in my workshop, whatever you say, my next question is, why do you say that? And then whatever you say, my next question is, why do you say that? And what happens is people start going around in a loop of rules and they
Right.
start creating chaos because all they're doing is repeating myth, you know? And
Yeah, but
ultimately
there
we come to the premise that there is really no why.
Um, I'll maybe push back on that a little bit because I think that there's logic that has to be involved. So, and that's where the why comes in because you have a set of axioms about a system that then you're making a as explaining as to why you're making a certain decision. So let's just say an ethical framework.
But the why, I'm going to argue, is completely arbitrary. Because if I ask you why you're saying your why, we end up in a maze of
You
what
can get
ends
to
up
a point of
repeating
infinite
itself
regress. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of you keep going and going and going, right?
around the mulberry bush. And people find
But
out they start repeating reasons. And then they finally
correct.
come out to because God made us that way. Then the question is, well, why did God make us that way?
Right. Right.
Nobody knows.
There and there are limits to logical systems in general, but I would say that there is a set of there are systems and you have a set of axioms where you can then start to make uh claims
Yeah.
about what your belief is.
See, and
Another
that's where the normative word comes up because
exactly.
this is tribal domestication. And so what we do is we create some sense of understanding
Right.
where we both agree what applesauce is. But I'm going to argue with you that we can't agree what applesauce is because applesauce to me means my grandmother from England and a ham.
Well, that's like a language game, more or less, though.
But that's our problem with LLMs. And that's the difference between uh, LLMs and large language models and human intuition. Some human intuition is stuck in language and syntax, but I'm
Mhm.
saying there's something divine about me. There's something unearthly about me. There's something
Sure.
beyond
Yeah.
logic about me.
I mean, even the fact that you're saying me,
Yeah.
there is that's in and of itself is huge, and that's where people, and that's where you kind of get into what does it mean to be conscious,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
and so that and but that's and that requires reasoning that you are self-aware that the system understands that it is a self
Okay.
and that
And
there's a
just,
self and another. So
but see,
that's
I'm going to say that my understanding of self, I'm just going to say is beyond reasoning. And if I played the why game with you, the favorite dessert thing with you, you'd see the frustration. And this is the reason why large language models are not going to be, they're not going to be aware. They might actually act aware. They might even give you reasons why they're thinking what they're
oh
thinking, but
it'll
they're
go
not
even
aware.
further than that. I
Yeah,
mean, it will even be able to self-correct, meaning, but the idea of self will not necessarily be there, but
that's exactly right.
it'll be able to repair it itself. And
Right.
I'm being, I'm using that, but it
Good.
won't be. And but this is the distinction between reasoning and intelligence and wisdom. That's so important that people have to be able to make the distinction because intelligence still is dangerous.
Yeah, see,
Like
and to
it
me, reasoning intelligence systems is still a trap because there's something else that makes me special.
and I'm not, and so that's, I'm not, the consciousness discussions I
Yeah,
find to be, you're right. And we can all give reasons as to what it means to be human. But at
yeah.
a certain point, what I'm saying is that there has to be a clear concept as to what does it mean to be, what does intelligence actually mean?
Is
And
a is a flower intelligent?
well,
Does it reason? You see, flowers are intelligent, but they certainly don't reason. Now, I don't want to, is it, let me ask you this question because we could do, is this the geometry that you're talking about here?
no.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, the geometry of thought is different because that's how we learn, which is basically um how we make associations between symbols, let's just say.
So when it says things in themselves, now we're talking about flowers, Joes, Steves, Anns, and Lees. Is that correct? When we're talking about things in themselves?
The thing in it of itself means that um you actually understand what something is and its attributes.
I'm sorry, say that again because I got distracted.
So you understand things, but you also like what the thing is and the attributes that actually constitute the essence of something.
See, and I'm not convinced that's even, I can have a sensibility that I understand God, and that's a complete fallacy. That's a complete, I'm kidding myself.
But you can understand things in a sense that where you can understand things so far as um here's a concept, here's a word, this is what I'm calling it, and this allows me to shape an object in the world, right? So that then from that you understand what makes its parts and how it interacts with another object.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, and that's meaningful. Now, whether we want to get to the idea of God and what, things that are more abstract, I think that those are different
See,
things.
and I wouldn't call that meaningful. I'd call it productive or something. I would call it deductive or inductive. I wouldn't necessarily call it full of meaning. I
No,
think that's the
well, it
elusive
depends
thing.
on how, but this is the distinction. Intelligence is not meaning that it can do something that, but whether or not there's meaning behind it is another question.
Well, we have a one-celled animal with
Well,
no
how are you
brain.
defining meaning, actually? Should I?
Well, that's the issue. And we have a one-celled animal with no neurons, none, and yet it will seek a partner, it will mate, it will avoid enemies, and it will find food. Where's the reason in that?
Um, it, there's no reasoning
Good. I
because
like
there's no
that.
sense of self.
How do we know that amoeba? Then why does that amoeba go mate? Why does that amoeba avoid
Because
its
it's
enemies?
instinctual. I mean, I could say, so an example would be is that if
Well, wait a
a
minute. Instinct involves neurons, doesn't it?
it does. It
Well,
does.
an amoeba has no neurons.
Yeah, but now we're talking about something that can override its primal
And to
instinct.
me, that's intelligence. And it's not physical, it's metaphysical.
So that's where I think that there's a distinction to be made, and there's an important one that intelligence can be seen as something that is um just flat out taking concepts and combining them and and enabling
See,
a
I'm
enabling
not,
a creating something. So
see, I'm
something
not
can
convinced that combining things is necessarily intelligent. I
I
mean,
think no,
that's,
I think combining concepts is actually a sign of intelligence. I mean, if in the sense that if I'm able to understand one domain and understand another and understand the relationships.
well, you're assuming that, I mean, a large language model can combine domains, but doesn't understand what it's doing. That's why half the time it
Right.
comes out
It
with
doesn't,
bullshit.
and that is a very big distinction, and that's one of the distinctions that I think that people need to have. There's an what does it mean to understand is really
Well,
important.
I was
And
going to
there's a
bring that up.
distinction between understanding and intelligence.
Absolutely.
And that's my point is like, so that's what I put in the chat is essentially that distinction between what it means to understand and what does it mean to be intelligent. And that's where I think, there's a lot of people in the scientific community that are actually having issues with that specific problem. And because they're saying, what is understanding? What is intelligence? How are we classifying what would be general intelligence? Well, then you have to understand what intelligence is, and you have to really kind of categorize what that is. And so, but then you can be intelligent and not reason. And that's that
Yeah,
was
I
and
would
that's
even
what
Yeah.
say that
Yeah.
if I'm intelligent, I don't need to reason. You see,
well
this is
no no
all
no no no
about
you're right,
words.
you don't need to reason, but the consequences of that become absolutely massive, because this is this idea of where our ethics come from. Our ability to appeal to something bigger than ourselves is really where we start to be able to abstract. So here's the example of sacrifices. I think is a very good example of this. You can have um a any type of animal that would actually that show signs of that they would sacrifice themselves for their cubs or whatever it may be, their offspring. And but it's not necessarily that's instinctual. It's not something where it's now a human would say, okay, I'm going to give up something in today for something in the future that's an abstraction, where there's an abstract reasoning that's going on, that it's not just instinctual. So basically, you're overriding your basic desire of the present moment to essentially do something in the future, and your ability to predict the likelihood of that occurring is another part of that process. So my point being is that I start to reason as to why I'm doing something in the first place. I'm sacrificing for my children. Why? Well, because they're important for me and they're important to future generations. Okay. Well, then why? And then if you keep going through that, though, there's an explanation as to why you're doing what you're doing. Whereas something less, I would say, that's something that's not reasoning, that's just reacting. It's acting in the world.
Yeah,
It's doing something, but it's not necessarily giving the reasons as to why it's doing it in the first place. This is why
yeah,
language is one of those things that makes us human. I mean, that makes
yeah,
us unique, our communication
yeah.
signal. So
Okay, and we need to play for because to me we need to play the game favorite dessert in order to have this discussion, and we need to decide that certain words mean, like what does meaning mean, things like that. And I feel like I've kind of misled us because I've broken the protocol for the call. I'd like to pause this and just check in with everybody. How are you okay with that, Joe?
yeah, that's good.
Good. So how let's go. How are you feeling, and how's your new year starting?
Yeah, as I said, there are certain things that I'm excited about, certain things that um that I'm looking forward to learning. And as we were just talking about a moment ago, it's really understanding what it even means to learn.
Yeah,
And so those are some things that I'm excited about, because I think I have a path on that.
cool.
Um, and so uh, my new year has been okay, for the most part, so I'm good. Anne, how are you feeling?
Okay. Actually, I have a lot to say about what the two of you brought up. Yeah. A lot, a lot.
Cool.
Because I spent 38 years of my life working with kids and figuring this out. Yeah. And I've seen what it can do. And anyway, maybe um after the this greeting thing, our what do you call our um how we start how we
Yeah,
start the whole thing. Yes, and then after Lee, I would love to share.
good.
Yeah. So yeah, New Year been on grandmother duty, so watching that little girl, the little girl, um change in a few days, it's ridiculous, right? So it comes
Okay.
down to even how they're learning, and it comes down to figuring all this thing out, because when now that I've gone through 38 years of teaching from little children to all the way to adults. Back then, my daughters were really young. So, and I was very, very, I hadn't started teaching actually when my girls were growing up, and I wasn't even staying with them for like all the time at home. But with my little granddaughter, I'm spending so much time with her that I'm like, how in the world did she choose to shake her head to mean no. We didn't teach her that. I'm like, where did that come from? You know, she's like this. And we're like, she pushes things away, right? But we didn't teach her. But she's only one, right? And she started doing this even a few months back. And then the other thing is, she remembers. I mean, like, not small things. And then she comes up with stuff that, she was over Christmas. She was cheeky with my brother-in-law, who's a very quiet, reserved person, right? So she's sitting next to him, and she would look at him and then put out the hand, and he doesn't even engage with her. She's sitting. My daughter was sitting next to her, to my brother-in-law, and my granddaughter was sitting on the mom's lap, right? And then she would reach out to him, and then when he turns around and looks at her, she'll turn away. So there's this little game going, and I don't even know how she started that. We've never played this game with her. So that's just a little bit of the Christmas I had with my family, but it's been crazy, right? So, but I'll share more about this whole thing with learning and reasoning and what is intelligence and this whole brain thing and what you call about parasympathetic, how it's showing up and what we need to do to get it out of the kids and what we need to leave aside and how science is coming in, and the tables and the whatever drawings they have, what it means, and because dealing with the kids on the ground is a very, very different kettle of fish. And the point is that in the 38 years, we've managed to get the kids to do all the things that we're talking about. And there's nothing to work from. Okay, there's nothing to work from. And I'm going to share with you what I mean by that. Okay, so anyway, what you started off with is really, really powerful because it's a whole about us being human and what we're doing with in order for us to get to where Bucky wants us to go, then we are grappling with reason and thinking and with everybody, even if it's localized, okay, they can come from a complete left field and you don't even know how they get there, kind of thing. Okay, so I will give my 2 cents worth on that one after Lee. Okay, so Lee, how do you feel, and what would you like to take away today?
You need to unmute. Good.
I have felt really good about our conversation today. Thank you, Joe. And I was overwhelmed trying to listen to two voices of Steve in my hearing aid or my hearing deals plus his voice, and it got totally confusing. Yeah, so we've got to figure something out here on that one. But I have enjoyed my new year. I went to visit a friend who is so intense at showing me something that I was supposed to learn from, but she had 2 cats. She has 2 cats, and I'm deathly allergic to cats. And I couldn't pay any attention to all that she showed me for several minutes, if not a couple of hours. I have no idea. And of course, I've been coughing and carrying Kleenex with me and sneezing. So hopefully I can recover soon and not develop into a cold. Don't want that. I'm excited to find out more about mites. I am stumped on the mites, and they are an entity that I don't see clear. They're a separate space, I think. In other words, an empty space. Is that true? An empty space in the diagram and a circle, and then the space that is not filled with lines is the mic?
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. I'd like to find that out. I have had a warm new year and a very nice last year. A wonderful last year. So I'm excited to develop this year as well as last year because I found all of you last year. Steve, how do you feel and what are you wanting to get out of today?
Thanks very much. I'm just real glad to be here. I'm excited. These holidays have been real busy for me, and I've just got to focus now on clearing up my schedule. I've got a couple things I want to do with my music and my book, and I'm going to reorganize myself and really get focused on that. So I'm looking forward to that. And I kind of shared a little bit about my holiday weekend and how cool it was, and I'm delighted to have shared. So I'm complete. So Anne, do you want to? We can talk about mites a little bit later. Let's let Anne talk about her impressions about what's going on, especially with the granddaughter. I mean,
No,
you're.
I won't be talking about my
I
granddaughter
know, but I
anymore.
mean, but your granddaughter, you notice how she's learning, and yet you've been working in education with, young kids to adults, and now you're watching this natural process. So I'm real interested in whatever it is you have to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, because actually the whole process is still ongoing with kids and as adults as well. So when I first started teaching, I was like, my God, these kids cannot think, And then there's no the creative part was missing, and they couldn't. There's so many things missing, right, in the children as I got them after high school, and here we are in college, trying to they are supposed to embody all these things in college, and they had so majority of them didn't have it. You'll be shocked, and they're repeating statements that they were told when they were in school, and without any thoughts, and a lot of the statements about teenagers, about young people, about children, and they know for a fact that when they experience it, they know they don't do it, and yet they repeat it. I give you an example of it. Like teenagers don't know right from wrong is one. So a lot of kids make mistakes because they don't know the right of and wrong of it. And we have to establish that they know it's right and wrong, but then they choose to do the wrong thing. It's a different thing. And yeah, there are things they don't know, but they do know a lot of things from very young, because otherwise you lay the foundation of the kids, passing the buck to somebody else. And then this whole idea of the yellow culture in Malaysia, they use this term a lot. In Malay, it's called kebudayaan kuning, which translates to yellow culture, which is the culture from the West coming into Asia, and they're placing a lot of the damage that got done to the children, and the violence, and dressing, and how they're attracting attention, all that on the culture that came from the West. And I'm like, wow, guys, whoa, wait, you're 18 years old and you're writing things like this from a very close-minded education system in Asia. And it's not coming from one kid, it's coming from so many who come from so many different types of schooling, whether it's private or local or Chinese vernacular or Tamil vernacular schools, or either coming in from other countries in Asia. I had this same kind of comments, and I'm like, wait, guys. First and foremost, do you see us wear traditional clothes? We don't, right? And so I'm just sharing with you where this whole thing came from, and then I will share with you where I landed. Yeah. So like, do we wear traditional clothes? No, as a Chinese, I don't wear the cheongsam, nor do I wear anything Chinese looking whatsoever in my entire life, you know. So we only buy them if we're going for a theme party or a theme event. Does that make sense? When they ask for cultural. I don't wear the Malay culture clothes either, and the Indians one I don't even have one. You know, so okay. Then I said, look, guys, what are we wearing? We're all wearing jeans and t-shirts and all that, right? And so you're telling me um how revealing is that? You can or you can choose not to. But the thing is, we're all wearing Western clothes. You know, we're eating in Western restaurants, and my students wearing short skirts. They're wearing whatever. You know, at that point in time, there were jeans that goes down to showing the underwear. You know, the guys, the briefs and everything, so you can see the brands. Well, it was here as well, right? Hip hop came over here, but none of the violence, none of the swearing came. Right? We can swear according to the song, but the kids who are in the Western culture, like this hip hop culture, doesn't mean they absorb the swearing, nor did they absorb the violence. If you want to see how it unifies young people, you'll be shocked. You know, you'll be shocked. And it's like the kids, the minute in hip hop, they recognize one another. Doesn't matter whether they're from China or they all dance together, they cheer together, and there's no swearing and there's none of the violence. So you get where I'm going with it now. So that there's all this whole thing that we're bringing from the West, and it felt more uniting than it was a bad thing. And I'm talking to the students. I say, guys, you do recognize that, don't you? That you're living a very, very Western life, in brackets, right? But then when you write, it's not making any sense, right? And you're saying that if you wear revealing clothes and all that, and I said the exams you're writing is for Canada, you know. You're gonna write that and say it's wrong, and then your teachers, the lecturers, when I was teaching in college, they were Canadians, you know. And you see them grow up in that environment, and they're lovely people with right values, and they care, and they do a greater job than in education than most Asians do, because they come from a more hard space, right? So you get where I'm going with it, right? So I'm like, wow, this is how it got me really having to figure out how to get this to the kids where they start thinking. And we ended up creating a whole education system where kids, the minute they come out, they think, they can reason, doesn't matter. And the thing is, the outcomes are completely different. You know, so even if you have this the normative part, which is very local, the things that keeps us localized, and we all have the same belief systems and all that, but you know what? I can give you a million different answers. So whatever protocol models that have been created, they are parts and pieces of who we are. And the thing is, when I'm teaching the kids, there are no parts and pieces of them. And no one has come up with what makes the kids whole and not parts and pieces. And the whole system of trying to get the information across, like facts, or there's no metaphysical part of it. So Steve, the minute you say certain, Joe, what you and Steve says makes sense, but it's on two sides of the same coin, and they're not even separated by two sides. In the world of human beings, they are like all combined, and it's not even two sides of a coin. The both sides are all mixed, and then it's not even two like sides. It's like we have so many. When people talk about dimensions, right, and they define it as 2D, 3D, 4D, but my God, I look at human beings. If you start to define the dimensions, you can't even put it into this 2D, 3D, 4D. And so in my entire life working with kids, we're able to to get them there without any science, without any models or anything. In fact, the models are creating a lot of issues in order to build these kids who are going to be whole, to be able to do what Bucky is talking about. You cannot use any of the models whatsoever. So so how I'm going down this path is this, because the idea of even intelligence was one that we had to explore, because we were working on getting them the assessment, right? And even like we're talking, a lot of people may talk about it, is IQ. It's the biggest mistake. Whoever came up with the IQ created such a huge problem for us in Asia. Right now,
everywhere,
till
not just
today,
Asia.
no, but the thing is, till today, there's no recognition for any other IQs, at least in the West. Your side, you see, like Gartner 7 intelligences have no say in this region at all, none. And we're talking about Asia, where you have the largest number of the populations in the world, right? Population in the world. There's no standing in here. It doesn't even make sense to anybody, and they're all coming from IQ. Okay, and they're coming only from the academic space, full stop. Do you know how big a mess it is, right? And even Gartner, when he came up with the 7 intelligences, he had to admit there are more intelligences that they have no way of measuring, because they have no way of curating, because there's just no data on it, right? So that's the thing. We are who we are. We're human beings, and when you deal with creating the education system, we cannot come from the space of the what can be measured, right? And that's what they've done. And when Steve talked about the why and the why and the why, I get it so much, because when people go down that path of answering, right? And you'll see exactly what Steve is saying, that the chaos that comes out of it, because and then you're not also talking about the people who may be the intelligences coming in, and then you have those who are more people-centric and those not people-centric, and then you have those with all the different profiles of what their strengths are. You want to deal with children, you wanted to get that intelligence going, and to get them to be able to think and reason and so on and so forth. We got to be prepared that none of these things are the main reason that get the kids to us adults be where we are, right? Because there's so many things at play, and they're all separate, but they're all together. So that parasympathetic part coming in, the point right now is most people want kids to think logically, but the space of being human and who we are is coming from this, like I really, really love the hierarchy, the cosmic hierarchy, and I use it all the time. And I have to remind people, for under nature, the definition of nature is that if it can happen, nature allows it, and therefore it's nature, because there's just too many of these that came out that, oh, it's not natural because, the science doesn't support it, and so on and so forth. Until we go down this path of understanding that everything comes into play, from emotions to anchoring, and to boredom to anger, to all everything, then only we can understand that where the whole process of what we do come from. And I'm not even going to use the word thinking alone. Let me just give you an idea. Higher order thinking skills was one that came out, and I'll share with you what I got out of AI versus out of when they went scientific and went to research. So I got my people doing biosphere. I said, I could ask AI, because we have all our curriculum, because we've been getting this for all our subjects, right? I said, get AI to come up with to help us pull out all our high order thinking skills and real world skills, right? And instead of doing that, they went to search in the internet on what high order thinking skills are, and what they got was Bloom's taxonomy, if I'm not wrong, and it showed about 8 or 9 high order thinking skills, from critical thinking to problem solving, and so on and so forth. You know what?
Are you talking about Benjamin Bloom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So they got, I said, why did you go down that path? I didn't ask you to do that. I asked you to ask AI, right? Because AI can pull out very, very precise, higher order thinking skills that we human beings got no time to sit down, and as a teacher, I have to be very clear what I am judging or what I'm assessing because of the work I've given them, right? Because, and even that, my assessments are very open-ended, and how in the world do teachers, can you teach teachers to do that? It's a whole different ballgame now. Let me share with you. This is me sharing this with the kindergarten parents who came in to listen to a talk that I was giving, right, on early childhood education, right? So just by doing two different activities, and we threw it in to get the high order thinking skills and real world skills. So we threw in finger painting, which is a little more two-dimensional in terms of the work for kindergarten kids, whereas we would give them things like mime a monster. Okay, mime a monster. That very open-ended kind of activity we give little children. And imagine they're 4 or 5 years old, we get them to do that. And most systems would do, kindergarten system would give them very two or one-dimensional activity. And if you try to do more than that, the teacher training will tell you, no, cannot. You got to focus on one or two skills at a time, and then the objective, you have to have one lesson objective. But the kids don't work that way. So I share with you, under the skills area of imagination, right? This is AI pulling out the activity. We have the whole thing, we threw it in there. So under finger painting, children explore colors and patterns freely. Now, mime a monster, children becomes mythical characters and backstories and traits. Kindergarten, 4, 5 years old. Decision making. Okay, I've got just I may need to run down to pick up my food from the guardhouse. Yeah, just give me a minute. I can talk on the way down as well. Guardhouse, yeah. Boleh kasih masuk, yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Let me go down. I'll take the thing down as I talk, yeah. Yeah, so you can see that, right? And then decision making, under decision making, the skills area, it says under finger painting is choose colors, hand motions, and layout. Mime a monster, decide how a unicorn walks or how a zombie behaves. Okay. Symbolic thinking. When people do finger painting, I'm not sure they even went down the path of symbolic thinking, right? So under finger painting is like low, mostly sensory expression. Mime a monster, high. Students embody ideas through physical performances. Sequencing or timing, fingerprinting, painting not present. Mime a monster, strong. Students enter on cue during the story. Now, these things, this higher order, the skills area, we didn't pull it out. AI did. Okay. Now, but then we have to feed AI. We have to feed AI with the activity.
Correct. That's right.
Correct? Yeah. So if we left it to AI to create activities, they will create finger painting because that is what is suitable for children who are 4 to 5 years old. Okay. We have got proof of that because we got even track record traits, the trail of handling using AI to create versus we create, right? Okay, just give me a minute. I'll need to kill them down. So that is just a higher order thinking skills. We're not even talking about the real world skills. And that's at kindergarten level, right? So all the activities we do with the kids are pulling out everything. Higher order thinking skills, real world skills. And they are determined down to that level that will never ever show up because whoever is creating a curriculum for the kindergarten will follow patterns and what was set by the educators who came up with the parameters. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So when then we've been creating curriculum. I've been creating curriculum like that for 38 years. 38 years. And then for me, I can see the kids. I see them from, the wires not connecting, because we have a friend from US who's our trainer, and he shared with us the brain, left brain, right brain. Yeah. And the size of everybody's brain is like similar, right? But the genius's brain has got more connectivity between the two brains by 15%. Okay. And the great news is that this it can be created. Okay. This the neurons in between the connectivity between the two brains, you can create them. And I've seen kids coming in at 7 years old, and you can see that you can read. So how in the world do you do this, right? I don't need an assessment to tell me this kid cannot think, or has difficulty thinking, or her thinking process is a bit limited. Does that make sense? And then and you can see in their work, because I see their work, and it's not my work is very open-ended. So it's not one answer, open-ended from primary one, kindergarten. That's what I've been doing from college all the way down. So you just imagine that you can see that this kid, that they come up with work that's a bit more generic. But by the time she was 3-4 years into learning in this open-ended creative way, you can see the eyes change. The eyes, the eyes are the ones that change. How in the world do you assess that, right? They're brighter, they sparkle. You can see. I can tell in a minute when somebody shuts down. You can see in the eyes, especially children, they can't hide. Yeah. But so and then we went down. We went into the real world skills. Then it came in at teamwork, finger painting, none. Mime a monster, yes. Students must perform as a group, listen for cues, and so on. It goes down, right? Emotional expression was the one. Finger painting is mild. Mime a monster, strong. You act out fear, joy, mystery, etc. Now then we went to look into we've been pulling all these things out for our like even primary one, just my English alone. Can you imagine that this comes out in a high order thinking skills from one activity? Imaginative invention, visual and verbal coherence from a primary one work. Okay. Now, if we understand this, the children, can we, and the way of who we are, how we learn, it's very, and what we are training the kids to do and nurturing them to do is not to be bound by boundaries, is to be able to do what Bucky talks about. If it can happen, nature allows it. That means nature allows it. So that means you got to get kids to do and work from beyond a boundary. So you set the boundary, but the boundary does not mean it has to be set for you, right? Therefore, then how in the world do you nurture a whole generation of children who can make the boundaries bigger, or come out from somewhere else that doesn't even link to whatever is existing here? How in the world? Because human beings have done that all our entire human history, right? But then how do we get more people to be able to do and think like that? So unless we can do that, then we will, AI will continually, what you said, people think that AI can think, because their thinking process is a little more limited. Now, this is what I would like to pull out from my work with my students, right? But what we as humans can do is a bit limiting, and yet we are limitless. How do you deal with that? So the whys don't even begin to cover. I know exactly what Steve means, and we didn't when we set out to do this, we just broke everything. We came from a space of connecting everything here, the heart and the gut, and even connecting emotions to academics, to all the intelligences and new intelligences, etc. We went down that path. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth on it's therefore thinking, reasoning, all I cannot separate them. Yeah, to do this, we can't. Creative, no, everything. That's who we are. We don't function. Yeah.
We don't
So
function linearly.
yes, we
There's
don't. Yeah,
something
it's like
going on that's
Well,
system,
it's this
yeah,
mess. It's this
it's
mess of things all combined.
convoluted, co-mingled mess of being a human being.
It's the reason the word mess comes about is more because you cannot even pull out the threads. You can't even pull it out to make sense of it. You get what I'm saying? Because we can say the same thing and reason out for people. We can have a majority thinking the same way, and somebody came from, oh, whoa, where did that even come from, right? So this is what I like that geometry. Okay, anyway, so you get what I'm saying. You can't pull it out. The reason behind, or even the thought processes and what influences it. It's like this thing that for us, we look at it, it'll be a mess. But then we human beings are all combined like this, and we are not a mess. We have a form, you know. We're different, yes. Yeah, but
yeah,
it's
it's one of the things that I would ask, is basically even this how we learn kind of question. I mean, there's almost this element of how there's the rate by which someone may learn and their ability to then reimagine things, but then there's also just fundamentally how does the brain operate as an operational system. And I think that that's an important thing to be able to distinguish, because then that's the ability for it to process information. And this is where it's like kind of this fundamental of looking at it is it's taking in information, it's processing, and it's going to sound very mechanistic, so forgive me on this, is it's going to be like a almost like a computer, and then you look at the data inputs, its experience, and then how are values weighted based off of the data that's inputted, right? So then that's where the cultural values start to emerge and things along those lines. But the reason it's so important to understand maybe how these machines work is because if they do something similar, that what they will do is what they ingest will determine its values, and even we don't even necessarily know how that occurs. And that essentially it will have more intelligence, meaning it will process more information than we will be able to. And so from that perspective, now that is very different than that distinction of, again, this all comes back to how does it operate? Because then there's a scalability question that then starts to come into the equation, because it's going to be able to scale more than a human being could ever do scale. So now, does that mean that it's reasoning or self-aware? And that's the reasoning aspect. That's where it starts to become understanding, knowledge, and wisdom. In other words, I'm doing this, I'm claiming, and this is the reasoning I'm doing it, and I have a sense of duty. There's an ethical framework that's actually governing what I'm doing. And there's something in this ethical framework is abstract. So this idea of even justice and doing what's just or something. But
But
I would just say that there is there is this I think that there's the distinguishing characteristic of how does it actually process how does the brain process information. And if machines process information, that doesn't mean they'll be able to have the same type of understanding or knowledge or wisdom, but they will have a form of intelligence.
My issue with what you're saying, Joe, is that what you're saying, it's like you're trying to structure a decision tree. And I think what Anne is talking more is about a hypergraph where everything is connected to everything, and
I agree. But there,
there's no linear. If I want to force a linear relationship on it, I hurt myself. Because as soon as I force this linear relationship, it's everything's hypergraphical. All I have to do is change a perspective and the whole thing
but
restructures.
it isn't the aren't the graphics the connections main between those two things?
But a
Meaning,
hypergraph is everything is connected to everything. So how do you structure it how do you prioritize it?
well, because how does it ingest the information? How does the graph work?
That's the problem, is every human being is not a graph.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah,
They're not
mm.
okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
go ahead.
Actually, Joe, I like I actually am very like um when people create the thinking, there's some really wonderful structures that come out that we didn't even think about on who we are as human beings, right? And just the thing what I'm getting at is that there's a lot more to and I know you get it as well. Just that wanting to have a sense of what how the whole thing is putting into that structure thing. Um, Sometimes we hit it, but then sometimes it gets separated. And once it gets separated, then nobody generally people don't pull it together, and that alone then becomes and depending on who gets the information, and then they will create decisions out of that information. That's the point I'm getting at. That's the point I'm getting at. So they make decisions out of from that one frame, and then oh look, my
Yes.
God, can affect just like what we said about math, right? The what was it? It started with the Romans, right? The Romans did the squares and didn't look carefully. They didn't research, or they didn't go further into the tetrahedrons and the triangles. And then lo and behold, we are all bound by this mathematics is based out of the squares and so on. Remember? So for me, primarily, that's what I see causing a problem for us trying to get people, like when we talk about the thinking process and how this brain thingy works in order to make the decision. So I'm using this term. I know that people will come after me for it because it's not based out of anything, but that's the point. They're not based out of one thing, right? So what we are doing in our school, we feel very strongly is multidimensional. The child,
Multidimensional.
yes, the child learns in a multidimensional manner. So that's the thing. Now, how do you define that dimension?
Right.
You see,
Let's
yeah,
pause. Oh,
yes.
go ahead. Finish your statement, Anne.
Yeah, just the last bit.
Right.
People tend to look at disciplines, but the disciplines is they look at subjects, but then kids don't function. They come from a lot of the human skills as well. That's what makes it multidimensional and not multidisciplinary for me. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm ending there. Okay.
Cool. I like this idea of multidimensional, which is more hypergraphical. We're multidisciplinary or based on multiple disciplines. A discipline is generally some kind of a tree, and it's usually two-dimensional. I'll just put that thought in there, and I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's my prerogative. We have two new visitors, or two new to our old the guys we used to know last year have made it into the call. We knew Manu last year. It's a new year. We knew Richard last year. Manu, you were here first. How are you feeling, and what do you anticipate for today? Glad to see you.
Compliment of a new season to everybody.
You're what?
Compliment of a new season.
Aha.
Now, the question is it the same me that is talking to you as the one
Right.
that went last year?
I hope some of you is still there, but there's some part I'd rather you leave behind. No, I'm only kidding. I won't.
The ship
And
is
I've
busy.
been having listened to Anne and Joe partially. I have a question for you. How do you go to sleep? In relationship to your bed, how do you go to sleep?
In relationship to your brain?
Bad.
Your bed.
Oh, bad.
So let's consider that. Am I I might just jolt in some idea in regard to that and see if he has anything in relationship to the discussion that you had. So, Richard, how do you feel? And I don't know. It's not expectation. It's just how is it? How is the year? The new year.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We were out for dinner and I was coming back to make sure I was here for 8 o'clock. And then my mind went astray and came in an hour late. Plus. But a couple of things. I got one of the best January 1 New Year's Day sort of notices that I've ever had in my life, and that is notice that a submission that I put in at the end of 2024 is now being published in a journal in Brazil in Spanish and English. And it's an accumulation of ideas that I've been percolating with since 1999. So that's great news. And 2026 is a very special year because it's the 100th anniversary of our profession of social work here in Canada. And you're going to hear something in 2026 that was written by myself and a class of students in 1988. And the question that we addressed was, is social work a profession, a 21st century answer to a 20th century question? The 20th century question was asked in 1915, which happens to be one of the years that Einstein made his discoveries. And what's really exciting about it is that I was teaching my students all about Bucky Fuller. And so we wrote a futurist paper that was going to be delivered as a keynote at the 100th anniversary in July 2026 by one of my former students. I had no idea that I might even make it to that year. It's all about what the world looks like and our discipline looks like, having adopted Fuller's ideas by the end of the 20th century. So 25 years into a belief in Fuller's world and how it would work. Unfortunately, the discipline did not adopt Fuller by the end of the 20th century. And what we have today is a far cry from what the paper says we'll have. But it's pretty exciting to have that kind of futurist paper on hand to compare with what we thought would happen in 1988 to what has been happening, and some of which was predictable, not right on the nose, but some of it is much like what Bucky said, is that you solve problems in order to find solutions and clear the way to solve another problem. And that seems to be kind of the state of the world these days. So anyway, what a wonderful year to start everything off on, and to be with this group this evening, and this morning it was with the TrinPep group, and we were talking about the whole concept of time and what is time. So it's time to share, pass it on to somebody else.
So speaking of time, Richard, do we have to wait till July to see this article?
No. That's I have the full article, which is quite long, and we published an excerpt of that article in the Journal of Humanities and Peace in the year 2000. So I could actually share both of them.
Cool. What would be a good way to do that?
Well, the best way probably is for me to just send an attachment.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
wonderful. You can include everybody if you want, or you can send it to me and I'll resend it out to everybody, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, good.
It's what Anne's school is going to be talking about in 25 years from now when her students come back to celebrate one of their anniversaries and talks about the experience he or she had throughout their school years and what they're now doing to make a contribution to the world.
Mm.
Boy, how profound that is, Richard. What if all of Anne's students, what if at the end of each year, your assignment was to have them each write some paper or collaborate different chapters in a composite saying, what if all education worked the way we did here? How would the world be different? And if I were leaving your school and going out to do something, I think that vision, that invitation to uh, project that vision might be more motivating for me because now I have a 25-year goal as I leave. I don't know. I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you.
Okay, so we're all complete with our things, and we have, gee, what do we have? It's okay, good. I figured out how to solve that problem. We have about a half an hour left on our call, and we can go any direction we want to go. Lee had a
Let
question
me,
about mites. Go ahead, Manu.
I just wanted to continue on, not continue, answer my query to you. How do you go to sleep?
Yeah, this
In
bed
relationship.
question.
Yes.
Yeah,
The first thing to see is sleep complex or not.
is what?
Yeah,
The sleep
complex.
complex.
Mm. It's
Mm.
Okay.
complex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is your bed a pattern or not? Or an accumulation of patterns?
Accumulation of patterns.
So to sleep, I leave my sheet, I get into my bed, cover myself, and I let it go. I travel, whatever, and then I sleep. So I experience the sleep. To sleep, I lift a ship, I slide myself into. That is just one ritual. There's another one. There are many others. Then I let this timer, and then I experience this environment, and then I sleep. And then for some other conditions, I wake up. So this metaphor has to do with all the, I think, with all discussion that's been going on in the face of complexity, but yet tensegrал system. For us to understand, we need to mix. We have to be inside. We need to imagine consciously that we are inside. And we have to let go of some of the contrasts that allow us to be out of that system and experience the system most of the time unconsciously, but accumulatively in order to shape what we feel of what that complex is. I repeat, what we feel, because we never have enough variable that we can exhibit to exhaustively describe what it is. Only that we know that there is a principle of duality that is operative, meaning there are things we see and things that we don't see. There are things that we feel and things that we don't feel. There are things that we measure and things that we don't measure. We also know that it will have to have a lack traveling. That is to respond to the question of what is time. That is a derivative of that, because time is our consciousness that lack has operated.
Right.
Time is our consciousness that lack has operated. Lack that is more root than time. Time is the derivative of the lag. Time happens because there was lag, not that there's lag because there's time.
Exactly. Oh.
So that is my little contribution to this discussion, in that you cannot basically completely describe a system by taking whatever. That is, for example, what AI does. That is taking the power of computing, doing many things at a time. But yet AI is unable to sleep.
Right.
That is, AI is unable to submit itself to the past.
Submit
In order
itself to what?
to pass, that is to sleep.
Oh, to sleep. To
Yeah,
pause. Yeah.
yeah.
But
I say I call pause submitting yourself to past. AI cannot sleep. AI must do, according to a logic of cause, effect. But you don't always know the causes. The
that's right.
causes, they become a mesh.
That's
So
right.
if you are
That's the reasoning
following
part
one
that,
pattern,
yeah.
what proved to you that that pattern hasn't changed in becoming the cause of your next action? Well,
That's
look. Let's just take the example of what is actual now. I was pondering that Maduro want to sleep in the mind frame that he could resist anything. He had his defense, whatever. He never imagined that a commando would come, taking him out completely, him and his wife, and take
yeah.
it where he didn't want to be. That's reality. It's a complex system. I don't want to us to get into it, but it's an illustration of what happened to complex systems.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Everybody was expecting something else, but yet this is something that stuns everybody. And that's the way systems are. They are dynamic, they are whole. We being inside can only perform one thing. And then we do one thing now to jerk the system, but we cannot completely master all the consequences on how it's going to look. It's always different.
Mm.
Okay, are you
So,
complete?
yeah. So
Okay.
my thing is,
Oh,
in order to answer the question, you just have to leave it. You have to practice. Came back to Confucius. You can do all the theory that you want on this and this and that. You can only progress if you practice, if you get into it. And being a learning machine, you are going to improve as you progress or as you regress. That is my contribution. It took a little bit longer than I thought, but that's what I found. Steve, I like Steve when he was talking about all of his, like everything, and Anne was explaining this complex thing that is all meshed up and how he can do this and that. That's it.
okay. Okay, we got about 25 minutes here. How do we want to finish what do we want to do here for our last few minutes?
I guess we can go around and I don't know. I mean, it's almost
Maybe do
takeaway time.
takeaways already?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
In a way, that's where we are.
I would like
That's
to
kind of
share
where
this
we are.
gift. You see this?
Okay. Muhammad
Can you
Ali.
read what is on it?
No.
It's too
Ah,
big. Do you see it?
yeah.
The greatest.
Was that against Sonny Liston is the first one I can tell. What's the second one? Are they all the same
It
shot?
is, okay, this is one, the greatest. Second, even the greatest get knocked down sometime. Third,
Was that with Joe
but the
Frazier knocking him
greatest,
down?
yep. The third one is him knocking out George Foreman in the Rumble in
The
the Jungle.
Rumble in the Drungle, the rope-a-dope.
Yes. And the fourth one is when he got, he had to abandon for the first in all his career after being beaten by, in 1981 by,
Ken Norton.
no. The other one was champion for.
Oh, was it?
But the lesson is, nevertheless, she should not overstay. Know when to voluntarily quit the game with grace. I got offered that by my son yesterday. And I've been trying to put it here. It's too big. I've been trying to hang it somewhere there. It's too big. I need to do major stuff. But, well, it is a nice stuff. And it's light, but it's very good.
Cool.
You can see the size of it.
Yeah,
I'm sitting.
Thank you.
Larry Holmes.
No, Larry Holmes, yes. That's it. Larry Holmes.
Good job, Joe. Why don't you go ahead and finish up and give us your takeaways today, and however you'd like to end our call, and then pass it along, and that will be our call today.
Okay, my takeaway is this one. I think that personally, I'm growing with these calls and these exchanges that we are having by being able to use two powerful stuff to kind of navigate myself in life situation or in understanding what's going on around me. The first one is the use of, I would call equanimity. That is the ability to get myself under the sheet, as I say, and feel wholly the integrity of the system. Mm-hmm. That is the first one. The second one, I think, is to use that as a pattern to orientate myself socially. Sometimes I'm not understood immediately, but it is meaningful to me that I can use it practically, not only to understand, but to try to tack my ship into a certain direction of life. And that is the accumulation of those little gains that this allows me to have. That is to be able to be steady in the face of things that will normally be, I wouldn't say scary, but that could freeze you, and be positive about that. What Bucky said. I think the trap was to try to frame the Bucky into time as a time and say, by to predict, to say by 2000, by the 21st century, all is going to be this, because you don't know in comparison to the numbers. Then I don't know, but I have the impression that this world in which we are living, we hadn't progressed in that way. We have exploded it a long time ago, because things are becoming very, very, very complex, yet we're still operating. And that is my biggest takeaway, that this is exponentially powerful in allowing us to be citizens that are constructive in our universe, and to appreciate the friendship. I think that will make it. It's only Joe here that in this set that I've properly met to physically hug somebody in this set. Yeah, before too long. So those are things that we do. Anne came here, but I don't know what she was doing. She was too much in the Kruger, enjoying her time with lions, rather than coming down to Cape Town. Okay, so that's it. So let me see, Richard, how do you feel? I know that you are taking away a lot of things amongst with joy, but what do you take away?
Well, as I started out, I guess my biggest takeaway is the gratitude for being present in the year 2026. And so the takeaway, though, actually goes back to 1985 when I started to first talk about Fuller in a chapter that was authored by or edited by a colleague at my university. Then the next year, I had a chance to present some of those ideas at a conference in Japan. And then I had an opportunity to share it with some colleagues from Russia. And so it was published in a Russian journal in the Russian language. And then my time in India, I added more sort of to it. And it kept going on and on like this to the point where what I wrote that's being published, I wrote between 2004 and 2022 about all the things that still needed to be done in our discipline to make it holistic and to expand the complexity of an organization like the United Nations into a networked United Nations that included more of the civil society. In other words, included more of a dialogue between people in a society and not just between governments. And included the business world and the government world and the citizen world. And so the big takeaway I have comes back to something that I learned from the civil rights leader, John Lewis. And one of the things that he said, not only in terms of his civil rights work, but also he shared with some of my colleagues in suicide prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, some years ago. And it was along the line of never give up, never give out, never give in, keep on, keep on, keep on. And I really feel that that's kind of what I've been doing since 1985 with my interest in Fuller's work and my continued opportunities to find affiliations like this group to encourage and keep pushing on, pushing on, pushing on. And into the complexity that I think Manu is talking about, that we'll approach the horizon of understanding or explanation, but we'll never reach the horizon because it will move away from us just at the moment we think we're going to step on it. So that's my takeaway, and I love the way that Lee is nodding, so I will invite Lee to share her takeaway.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. When I discovered this year from Steve of what he was doing, both on Wednesday morning and on Saturday evening, it was enticing. It was a desire that I wanted to find out what in the world he was studying or teaching or learning. And being in a group with these beautiful, intelligent individuals, I feel not as qualified at all in any way, but I have gained an awful lot this small time that I have associated with you. Now, Manu, you talk about a sheet going over your body once you climb into bed. I have a sheet that is flannel. Then I have 3 quilts and then a blanket above that to keep me warm, or I shiver all night long. And it's a rough deal to get into. Um, I associate myself with Anne in trying to find out how in the world I'm going to live through this old age of shivering my entire life away. I I have Steve brought over a heating pad. So I've got a heating pad in my bed if I need it. And I've only needed it once, but it's there and I haven't taken it out. I have truly learned an awful lot from all of you and still wondering where in the world my mind went when you guys were learning all of this. Where was I? I missed out on so much. And so I'm planning on finding out this coming year. And it's going to be a good 2026 for me. Joe, how do you feel? And what was your takeaway?
There are a lot of good takeaways. Again, there's a sense of gratitude for everybody that had come here and share their ideas. Obviously, especially Anne. And Steve, we talked about going through the document, and I think that everybody's share was actually very meaningful. So for me, and so I it's it's interesting because I still think the one takeaway that I have is how there is still this element of how, if you look at myth, an ancient myth, and how that can reveal some of the same ideas that we're talking about. And Steve can appreciate this because we've had many conversations about this idea of John 1 in particular. And even kind of thinking about intelligence in that sense is, you can kind of, the model that I'd initially put into the chat can also be seen as a way of looking at intelligence. So my point being that these myths help us articulate these ideas. And so that's one aspect of it. And the more that we articulate the ideas, or at least that I do, the more clear they become and the more easily it's able to be kind of expressed and made accessible. The other thing is that I'm really have to kind of really contemplate, because it's the second time that I've been told that my approach towards describing intelligence is linear. And I got to reimagine that. I either it's my description that's not coming off, or could be even my understanding, the way it's being presented. I look at it as I'm using words that are actually, yes, they come off as linear, but there's an interconnection between the ideas, the concepts themselves, so that it can be graphical. But I need to, I need to explore that a little bit more deeply to make sure that I'm correct, and to be able to express that in a non-linear way. I do think of it as a set of connections, a set of regions, you could even say, on a graph. And maybe that might be a better way of kind of articulating the ideas, as the connections between the nodes, and the strengths of those connections. There are a lot of ways to do that through Bucky's model, specifically with space-time, and the idea of a happening, and that's where the tetrahedron comes into play. So that might be a better way of actually explaining it. But I have to think about that, and that's the reason I'm grateful for that takeaway, is because it's the second time I've brought this up, and that people have said, that they said, it's a little linear, and I have to take the feedback. I didn't necessarily see it as such, but I have to figure out a way to maybe express that a little bit more clearly. So that's my other takeaway. So I'm very appreciative of that, because it's not my intention to come off that way. But again, yeah, I think the question around intelligence and what we are initially, even how the operating system functions, and then how does reasoning ensue from there, and then there's a connection. It's they're not separate, but something that I've had a lot of conversations about is this idea of, if there's schema on write, schema on read, there's one, or it's a data kind of a more like a database, a relational database, versus a data warehouse versus a data lake. And so one has structured data, one has unstructured data, and which one of those things comes first? In other words, do we structure the data, or and we do. I mean, but does it come from the external environment that we learn and then reason, or do we then reason and then learn? And those are two different processes that need to be separated, but they're the same. So, and I think that, and again, that's so important, is to understand that, is that because however a model may work, will determine the scalability of intelligence. And intelligence, so far as into the way I think that was oh yeah, I agree with you. And I think that that's actually in the first section, Manu, that you're saying. What you were saying initially with one of your comments, that I won't go back into the whole thing, but anyway, I think that the one comment I put in there, that the idea of what structural intelligence is, reflexive awareness, and normative agency, I think that that's maybe a better way of capturing some of the things that I was actually trying to say. There's a lot. There's a lot to cover here, and all I can say is that I'm very grateful for everybody's share. And how are you feeling? What did you take away from today?
Thank you, Joe. And I really would love what the outcome is when you go down that path of figuring out the thinking process, and not making it to help us see the not linear part of it. I can't wait for that to happen. Yeah, Joe. Yeah. So first and foremost, I feel like such an honor to be in our meetings every Wednesday, Saturday, and to even have this conversation with all of you. And I think we're sharing things way more than we would share with most friends and even family. And that closeness, I think, is just unbelievable. There's this shared vision, there's this shared, it goes way, way, way beyond. And then Richard, congratulations on all your achievements and how far. In fact, Steve, Joe, Richard, Manu, how long you guys have been working and discussing Bucky and using the things that Bucky, the discussions that comes out of it, the thought processes that come out of it. I joined y'all 4 years ago, 2021, right? And so I can keep count because it's just very recent, but I know you've been at it for a long, long time. So it's such an honor to be part of this and being with you. So now, just to end two things here. One is, I give examples like just now on the thinking process, like how to get kids to go beyond, and then you literally, like we talk about, you come up with things by solving a problem. But what if it's not a problem and you're still doing it anyway, And a lot of creation came out from not a problem, but just because, yeah? So for me, that is big. But I am going to give an example of the real world skills that came out of physics, like our physics curriculum, and it's on measurements, right? One chapter is on measurements, but we had to figure out how to humanize science as much as possible for the children. And so when I threw in the activities, I get such a buzz out of being able to pull skills like this out. And so we went down the path of getting it from AI, and it was designed for presentation that came out for physics measurement. The other one is conceptual application in creative work, communication clarity. Just that alone is so far out from facts, as you can get, that excites me. Whereas there are others as well that comes out, which is quantitative literacy. You have system analysis, but from measurement to be able to pull out these skills, for me, I just love what I'm doing, to make sense of this whole thing for children, right? And that's not talking about the higher order thinking skills, which efficiency, logic, independent planning, numerical reasoning, visual synthesis. I'm like, that's it. That's what I want, for the kids to pull out of things that are factual, right? That's just to round off, because the earlier example was on creative side, the activity. So you may not see how you can pull out the creative side and all the other areas that is beyond the factual science in people, yeah, especially the children. Now, and the last one is about sleep, yeah. Let me share with you how complicated it gets in a short bit, okay? It took me 1.5 years to get to where I am in order to sleep the way I can sleep now, okay? For years, I used to wake up every 2 hours just to go to the bathroom. And to get here, I had an osteopath, ENT, and a dentist. Three groups of people working together, because nobody has ever looked at, they normally, the medical field do not look at our body as a system. So they went down this path of this three groups as a system, this group of people. And one is a group, the other two are individuals, right? Now, to get me to sleep beyond 4 hours at a time without waking up, right? Now I can sleep even up to 8 hours without waking up to go to the bathroom once, right? But in order to do that, I had to go through a sleep, besides seeing them over 1.5 years, I had to go for a sleep test. The sleep test told me I woke up 40 times in the night. And then for them to tell me, and you are in fight or flight mode the entire night, and to change that out, all it takes is, and they keep saying it's stress, but I don't feel the stress, but it is a physical stress that we put on ourselves without knowing it, because my teeth touch just because of where my tongue is placed, and I didn't know that. It was too far back. And when that happens, the whole day, my teeth, they're touching, and your body is in fight or flight mode. So to train in order to get my tongue to be not in that position took me a while, right? So it has to be just behind your teeth. And your teeth will never touch. But then at night when you sleep, it's subconscious, right? You're not conscious. So how do we do that until it becomes conscious, right? So I just share with you how complicated it gets. So that's one. Number two is your mind is so active. I had to learn how to the vagus nerve works and where to put my eyeball, where to turn my eye, which direction, and it completely takes the vagus nerve out of the equation. And you go into, like, you can just go into sleep. That's weird, right? I've never seen anything like that. But it didn't even start with sleep issues. That's not where it started. I had this issue one day. I was at the doctor's and the nurse, the lady assisting the doctor, just helped me lift my arm up like this because I was doing a scan or something, right? So, but she lifted it up without telling me, and so something shifted, and my arm couldn't move for 4 days. It was in extreme pain just to even, to swing it a little bit, I had to sit like this forward for 4 days. I couldn't drive. And other issues came up over the couple of years, and that was what started the whole thing. It was where all it came up to was my jaw. The problem was at the jaw, and it affected the sleep.
Yeah.
This was how complicated it got. Now I cannot sleep sideways. I must sleep straight up, because when you sleep sideways, you mess up with your posture. I cannot cross my legs, not when you're sitting, and not even to cross it at the ankle. So you got to be so conscious about all these things. Whoa! So it became, when you were asking that question, yeah, Manu, how do you go to sleep? My answer was complex, but now I share with you. It was so complicated, right? But anyway, I love this group. I just absolutely love all of you. And Happy New Year. So,
Happy New
Steve,
Year.
how do you feel, and what is your takeaway today?
Wow. Listen, Anne, your last little comment about relaxing the jaw in clinical hypnotherapy, when one of the techniques that we used, I got that training like in 1985 or something. As someone talks down and goes into where'd you go, Lee?
I took this off
Huh?
and it closed me out.
Okay, come on back in.
Okay.
She's listening to me while she's coming back in. But we would go through and count people down 10, 9, 8, 7, more relaxed, more relaxed. We used to use a technique where we'd have a person hold their hand up, and as they got more and more relaxed, their hand would drop down, and we'd know that they'd go into a trance at that point, right? And a lot of people would say, well, I'm not in a trance, I'm asleep. But then when we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in reverse, they'd wake up at the count of 5. So they weren't asleep at all. They were just in a trance. They didn't know it. But one of the tests we used to do was, now that you're completely relaxed, 10 to 1, relax your jaw. That's what we'd say to them, because that would be they would still be in that tense jaw thing. And what dawns on me is that when and I'm going to put this in my book, I'd forgotten about this jaw thing. You bring up the vagus nerve. I talk about ujjayi breath, or breathing and having it's a breath in the throat. This is called ujjayi breath in yoga. It actually vibrates, stimulates the vagus nerve at the base of the spine, at the top of the spine and the base of the skull. And so by going, make the ocean sound with the mouth. Breathe and make that ocean sound. It vibrates the vagus nerve and actually helps the parasympathetic nervous system take over. And one of the things that happened is that I do this thing. I don't focus on jaw. I'm going to put jaw in there. Because that's exactly one of the things that happens with meditation. So I've learned to relax my jaw just by doing my sit every night. I had to do other things, though, to stop. I was still, until 2 years ago, I was waking up every hour and a half to go pee. And then Lee invited me to go with her to her chiropractor. And I was talking with him. He said, your problem is you don't have enough water in your system. I said, well, who wants to drink water before I'm going to bed? I'll just have to go pee. He said, drink the water, dude. So every night now, before I go to bed, I drink 6 ounces of water. And last night, I slept for 6 hours without waking up. So I'm sleeping. I think the night before I slept for 7 hours. The night, maybe I only got 5 hours and 45 minutes, but I'm not waking up every hour and a half. So anyway, I'm putting the jaw thing in my book. And thank you very much. Now, it's lucky we started our takeaways when we did, because like it's 6 minutes past the hour here. And I've got words. Joe, I wish we had more time. I see this last thing you put in here was self-editor, logos, structural intelligence, watcher with God. What the hell? I want to talk to you about all that. Okay.
Sure.
Are you generating this, or is this something you're getting from some other resource?
Some no, I use some of it I get with AI, but the initial watcher,
Yeah.
self-editor, and subject-object unity was from that recursion video that I sent you about 3 months ago.
Well, I think one of your problems is you're talking to AI, and this is really throwing you off because AI thinks it knows shit and it doesn't know shit. Let me tell you, I'm just being,
Yeah.
I'm,
Well,
I'm just being sarcastic with you.
it doesn't know anything.
That's right.
That's an important distinction right
And
there.
see, knowing is a main attribute of human beingness. There are times when I
And
know
that's
without
reasoning.
thinking.
And
No,
that's
it's not
reasoning.
reasoning. It's not
Uh,
reasoning. So well, we could talk about it.
yeah, we do. Yeah, we should.
Here's a couple keywords for me. Here comes Lee. A couple keywords for me is we really got to stop. Maybe one night we ought to do favorite dessert, because when you get why, doesn't make any freaking sense. When I
Yes.
answer any question why, I'm creating chaos. And if we did that process here, I think you'd see it. It takes at least three people to do favorite dessert, because you have the one person asking the question, you have the other person who's the subject who's answering the question. But the third person just sitting off to the side, watching the whole process, that's where the epiphany comes. Because the guy who's the subject giving all these reasons doesn't see the stupidity of reasoning. Where the third person sitting goes, geez, this guy's going around in circles. And the observer begins to see how reasons don't work. So I'd love to do that. If you guys are
And the
interested, we can do
subject
that.
object relationship becomes more, apparent.
Okay, that's some good words. I'm confused about your word agent here. I really hate your definition of intelligence. To me, intelligence is metaphysical. It doesn't have anything to do with reasoning. And let me see, was there? Oh, and I think the reason why I called it linear is because of, as Manu said, he said, put an S on cause and have causes. And as soon as I no longer have a cause, as soon as I have causes, I go from a linear or disciplinary
Yes.
approach to a hypergraph approach. Because that's the problem is I can say this causes this, and there's 15 other things that could cause this. So the hypergraph is there. So I love your thought process. And those are I'd love to play favorite dessert with everybody. That would be really
I would, yeah, I definitely would love to go through this with you a little bit more in more
good.
detail.
Can I say something, Steve?
Okay,
Sorry,
we're
sorry.
we're pressing on the clock, Manu. Go for it. Hurry.
Now I'm just going to say to that S, when we are in the talking, in the flight mode, as you say,
Yeah,
when you say cause, people don't hear the causes.
yeah,
Mm,
And they go into the heuristic of cause
you bet.
without S.
I hear
mm.
you.
Whereas you meant and you said causes.
I love it. That's hypergraphical. Richard, I want to celebrate with you your entrance into the 2026, my friend. I'm so honored to be here as you move into this. When I turned 75, when I turned 70, I was looking at people around me and how old they were. I'm going to be 80 in 17 days. I'm going to be 80 years old. I know you're 84 or something like that, right? And so I'm watching you, my man. I'm watching you. I got the eye. Um, and so, but I look at that, and when I turned 70, I thought, I'm just not that old. And I started thinking about, instead of thinking, I used to think of my life in terms of um, years. I stopped thinking of years. I created trimesters. So from 0 to 30, uh, let me see, from 0 to 35, I was just figuring shit out. And from 35 to 70, then I worked it and figured out I didn't know shit. And so now from 70, I added another 35 years on 70. That put me at 105. So I'm not finished with this round till 105, and then I'm going to retire. So I'm
Steve,
just,
I have my rifle. on you again.
Yeah.
I have my rifle.
Yeah.
Now let me get you on what you said.
Okay.
You say you were going to turn 80 in 17 days.
That's right.
Now, is that a cumulative process or not?
Yeah. Okay, good. I got to finish my
So
takeaways.
hold on.
Okay.
Why will you measure an accumulative process linearly?
That's
To
right. I
say
stopped.
80, 70.
I
You
gave
should
up
say
on the annualization.
you should say log of, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Naturally, accumulative, and here I'm serious. Accumulative processes they will not measure in linear, like
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Because it is accumulative. One is coming as a layer on the other.
right.
It's folding.
Yeah. In fact,
We
it's
know that
folding.
yes, we know that the best way to measure it is by a logarithm.
A logarithm. I got you. In fact, we can talk about that on Wednesday.
So never tell me again of your age of 80.
Okay, I won't do it.
Tell me what log of 80 is.
All right, good. Log of 80. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. Richard, also, I want to know, you published that thing in 2004. I'd be really interested in any retractions that you have. If anything came up, we don't have to talk about it tonight, but I'm wondering, you wrote it to that far. Man, I retract crap every freaking week. And you wrote that thing in 2004. Wow. I'd love to hear if you have any retractions. Also, Anne talked earlier about how important the Bucky's cosmological hierarchy is in what she teaches, that she constantly goes back to that. And of course, that is hypergraphical, right? Because everything is everything all the time, right? Nature is in universe and everything. So anyway, it's too bad you missed that, but she uses that a lot. So I just was thinking about you in terms of those things. So I've picked on everybody. Lee and Anne, you both talked about this crowd. I I don't have very many friends. Even in my family, there are limits to what I can say in my family because they start going to sleep, they start yawning, they start wanting to go someplace. To me, my best friends are podcast people. They're PhDs. They're physicists. They're like Richard. I mean, they've been around for a long time doing a lot of good stuff. And like you, Anne, those are my friends. And of course, they're not friends. They're podcast people. You guys are my friends. So I agree with Lee. I agree with Ann, and I'm sure it's consensus here. This is such a special group, and I'm going to get emotional. So let's see. Did I finish my takeaways? I think I'm pretty complete with my takeaways today. I'm very honored to be with you folks. Happy New Year. Any other final statements before we go?
Did you actually drink
Just
6
one.
glasses of water before
No,
you
I
went
said
to
put it. I
sleep?
put ounces. There's no way.
16 ounces. 16 ounces of water.
Okay, because I heard 6 glasses.
Right here.
No.
16 ounces. One of these guys.
Okay.
If it were
I
six
leave it with my
that I do.
kombucha bottle.
That I do all the time.
Okay, good.
yeah,
Yeah.
six
Well,
glasses. I don't
just
care.
to come back,
You'd be getting up.
Yeah.
come back to this age thing.
Yeah.
I just realized after I said what I said and when I began that I started some of these writings in 1985.
Yeah.
And this year in 2026, I turn 85. So 85 to 85.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
There's some symmetry,
love
and
it.
I'm sure Manu can create a logarithm relative to that.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, everybody. See you.
No, but seriously, I had some stuff to say, look, in life, you have explosive things.
Yeah.
That is exponential. You have accumulative, that is gravitational things. That's
Right.
logarithm. And then you have you have dissipative things. No, I say there's explosive things. There are implosive things.
Sure.
Explosive like this and
Right.
implosive.
Right.
Then there are dissipative things
Yeah.
and there are accumulative things.
Yeah.
And I realized that there are 4 classes of functions that describe those things.
Yeah, good.
And functions are relations. So
Good.
here you can build a physical world, borrowing from mathematics, and actually seeing that it is in our social relationship that we create that world.
Cool. And Manu, it's time to go.
Okay, good. I'm waking up. You are going to sleep.
That's
Yeah.
right. We're going to sleep, and
And
I'm
Anne
gonna
is taking the midday break.
I'm
That's
gonna
it.
find those sheets that you talked about, Manu, really fast. We're looking for the sheets. Everybody complete?
Okay.
Okay. Bye bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.